Welcome to the Galen Trombley Show. Be sure to subscribe, review, and share the episode. You can follow me on social media at Galen Trombley. I hope you enjoy the show.
Greetings. Please hold for a very important message. Lightspeed sequence initiated.
How may I help you?
Bonjour.
Security breach.
The truth shall set you free. Awesome. It's a miracle.
Stabilizing. 3, 2, 1. Mission complete.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Welcome, everybody. Episode 267. I'm losing my voice a little bit, so I'm going to let these three ladies do most of the talking today, which is, I'm sure, everybody's going to be super pumped about, so they don't have to listen to me. My guest today, though, we have a trifecta. We have the ladies of Riley Ford. Is that?
Yes.
I guess all one big family. Jane too, but I didn't even think about it. I only had 3 mics, and I should have probably had Jane, but you guys would have been sharing. It's okay. But we have 3 sisters, or we have mom and 2 sisters, I should say. Joy, Jenna, and Jess. You guys have all been part of Riley Ford for as long as I can remember. At least Joy, and then obviously you guys followed suit. So we're going to dive into a bunch of cool things today, but I appreciate you guys all coming in. So whoever wants to start off. I was looking at Joy, but we can have whoever wants to start off.
Starts with Joy.
Usually just kind of like a little background. So people that don't know who Riley or what Riley Ford is or where it is or who started it, which again, maybe Joy, you might be the best one to answer this. We'll start there and then we'll just dive into a bunch of fun stuff. So
Perfect. Riley Ford is a Ford dealership located in Chazy, New York. As best as we can guess or search back, it's like 1920-ish, 20-ish or 26, somewhere around there. My dad purchased it in 1980. And then I came on board after I graduated college from Clinton Community College in 1986. And then worked my way up through the realm and have been there ever since. So still a Ford dealership, and very, very proud of that and very fortunate. And my daughters work with me as well. And my sister is still at the dealership as well.
So, Jenny, you want to go next?
Yeah, sure.
So when did you join?
Birth,
okay.
1989.
That's good. 89, great year. That's favorite year.
Obviously, as most people can assume, or for those that have been with us that long, we grew up at the dealership. We were there all the time, after school, on the weekends. We loved being there. I started in high school as like my part-time job after school on the weekends. Went to college here at Plattsburgh State for Business, and then after I graduated, I started full-time. So technically, probably around 2004, I could say we've been on the books.
Yes.
But
On the books?
Yes.
Okay.
Child labor. Child labor.
Well, so
a little bit of
Jen
that,
who
right?
welcomed you here. Yes,
Yes.
She asked me today. She goes, "What's a working paper?" Because her daughter's old enough now. She grew up in Nebraska. They didn't have working papers, so I'm like, it's kind of like documenting that you can actually hire this person.
Yes.
So,
So that I did
it's a
that. I
thing.
had the working papers
Yes.
from the school to go
Weren't
to
they
the
blue or
dealership.
yellow?
I
Do you
think mine
remember?
was green.
Was it? I'm
I think
colorblind,
it
so
was
maybe
blue.
it was. There's I always said blue and yellow, but they like taped it up on the wall.
Yes.
Yeah, I had to do it first. I served ice cream, so that was my claim to fame as a young kid with working papers. So.
I feel like that's the North Country dream, the serving ice cream when you get old
Yes.
enough in the summertime.
Absolutely.
Well, when you got the working papers, you were pumped. And then what you didn't know at the time was like, sorry, kid, but this is your life now. You're working.
Yeah.
You're like, this is so fun. I'm finally working.
I forgot to tell you that part.
Yeah.
As the parent.
But then the expenses don't get as fun as you get older. 'Cause, like, it's not
Yes.
fun paying for insurance as much as like movie tickets or something.
Yeah.
So, all right, Jess, go ahead.
So I started in 2013 in the office on kind of a part-time basis. So I had just graduated from Elmira College with a degree in criminal justice, and I was pursuing my master's at Plattsburgh State. I wanted to do something in the mental health counseling realm, but there were some life changes that had happened. We had Carson. I met Bryce. He moved he moved to the North Country. And working there, I was just at a much different point in my life than I had envisioned being. And in 2015, I became full-time as the business manager.
So, I'm going to go back to you, Joyce. So, I got a story too about the second time I ever met Bryce.
Oh, perfect.
Which I'll bring it up. It's not the first. It makes sense when I say the second time I met
Yeah.
Bryce. So,
You got to give him a few tries.
no, I liked him on the first try. I'm just saying the second.
Yes.
I met Bryce twice. Like I actually like.
Oh, that's cool.
I'll
Okay.
tell you the story.
Awesome.
He's awesome though.
He's great. I love Bryce, but it's yeah, it would be a fun story later.
Okay.
So, Joy, so when you came back, or I guess growing up, your father owned it 6 years prior. Did you intend to come back and join the dealership? Was that something that kind of felt like? Because this is the thing, I got a lot of parallels because obviously we work in kind of a family business,
Yes,
the same
it is.
thing.
Correct.
Second generation.
Yep.
So you're now in the third generation. So that you were my shoes, or very similar to you guys. Is it something that you felt a pull to? Was it something that you ever felt pressured to do? Was it something that you felt or pressured obligated? Was it a fallback where like, well, it's an easy thing to jump into now until I find the next thing? Like, what was the mindset?
When my parents purchased the dealership, my sister and I were in high school, so it was a different scenario. I didn't grow up in the automotive world, so, and going back to the child labor, so the dealership was needed a lot of work when my parents purchased it, so we did a lot of cleaning and organizing and that type of thing, but had no intention of working at the dealership. So I went to Clinton for got a business degree. Wasn't really sure what I wanted to do, but I was not like working at the dealership, just like when, I guess you want to say forced to, because he needed help or whatever. That's just how it goes, right? Back then. Today too. But not until I graduated college, and I was like, well, really, what am I going to do? I'm like, well, I think I'm going to try sales. And my dad was like, sure, because he thought it was just like one of my passing like fancies that I wanted to try. But I actually really enjoyed it. Stuck me in the corner of the showroom with no phone, just like a folding desk and chair and that type of thing, little handheld calculator. But I really enjoyed people, and I enjoyed the conversation part of it. I'm not really an outgoing person, so that's kind of an unusual characteristic for somebody that's in sales. But passionate about what we do and taking care of our customers and taking care of our employees. So it just kind of was a fit, and I really, really just loved being there. So, and I've been there ever since.
It's the same building, right?
Yes, it is the same building with a ton of changes, and they will both attest to. There used to be 2 cars in the showroom. Now there's none because we needed more office space. And then we did a big service expansion back in 2016, I think it was. We went from 8 bays to 12, but reconfigured it so that we can put a lot more vehicles in the shop and work on a lot of heavy equipment. So like telephone company, trucks, that type of thing. Rail car trucks, I guess you want to say. So we needed the height, then we needed different lifts. So that was a really big expansion. That was an interesting project.
And you recently got the weathercock. We
Yes.
call it the weathercock.
Yes,
the
it's
parking lot.
the property, and which was, very unfortunate for Chazy, because that was just like, Chazy is the weathercock, right?
I
Like,
mean,
yes.
I had my
A lot of-
21st there.
Yeah, like everybody. I mean, that's
Dealership
what, probably
retirement luncheons there,
yes,
I remember.
Yes, retirement luncheons, and I mean,
St. Patty's
just-
Day. Oh, yeah.
I mean, just
Happy Bike.
everybody hung out there, so that part
10
was so
employee orders
sad.
a day at least. Like,
Yes,
we
ate
never
lunch there all the
stopped
time.
ordering
Yeah,
there.
so it was that was very, very sad. So the fact that we were able to purchase it, that part was good. Unfortunately, we didn't rebuild it as a bar. We needed more space because we were really landlocked. Where the dealership is located, so we use every inch of it.
Who started Riley Ford? Was it always called Riley Ford?
Back then it was called Patnode Motors.
Really?
And then it was
Okay.
Yes.
Riley Motors, right?
And then it became Riley Motors. So it was Hubert Patnode that originally became a Ford dealer, and then sold it to Bernard Riley. And Riley is a very big name in Chazy. And he was a school teacher and purchased the dealership. He hated it, did not like it at all. He was like, "Oh, Joy, it was not for me." So he he didn't own it very long, and then he sold it to Marge and Steve Longton and Pete LeBlanc. And my dad went to work for them as a salesman. My dad was a phenomenal salesperson. And then unfortunately, Mr. Longton was diagnosed with, I don't remember what the name of the disease was, but a terminal disease. And unfortunately, they offered the dealership to my dad to sell it to him, and Ford approved it. And that's, and he wasn't really like a person who needed everybody to know that he owned Riley Ford, and it had a really good name. It didn't have a bad name, so he never changed it. But you notice that most stores are named after the owners. But he's
I was wondering, because Kavanaugh's the same thing. Like,
Yes.
Kavanaugh's Frank Kavanaugh, and
It's not your last name, but
not even close.
right.
I mean, there's no relation. And actually,
Yes.
I think I don't even know if my dad bought it from Frank. I think he might have bought it from someone else.
So
it just kind of,
Yeah, similar thing. So it didn't have a bad name. So it had a good name. So, and he's like, I don't really need people to know that it's Roberts Ford. He's like, that didn't matter.
Do
Yeah.
we get asked all the
whatsoever.
time, are you the Rileys?
Yes.
Yeah. You're a Riley? I'm like,
Technically.
well, yes, but no.
That was a maiden name. Yeah, maiden
Robert.
name.
Roberts, but yes.
yes, but no.
So when you guys, I'm gonna come back. I'm gonna kind of spread it out here. So, what's everybody's role right now? Like, I guess day to day. Like, what hat do you wear? Hats do you wear? Maybe multiple hats.
Multiple hats.
I wear
Yeah.
one hat still,
Okay.
which is I appreciate that. So I'm the business and finance manager. So I did a little bit with the social media, but that's also being handled by somebody else now at the dealership. So I take care of customer financing and like vehicle protection needs, and
Okay.
that is very much my area.
Finance, compliance,
Yes,
laws.
compliance, all of that.
So
Which
you're
is a
like
big deal.
You're like the Toby of Riley Ford.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Do you watch The
absolutely.
Office?
No, but
I
Bryce
mean
really
it.
liked it, so yes. Yes.
You're nicer than Toby though.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm like, okay, you guys are really not going to like this, but I need to remind you, we can't be doing X, Y, and Z.
I was gonna say it's better than being shut down. So please follow the rules.
Yes, we do. We do.
And Jenna, what do you do?
So I'm service manager and general manager. So I oversee the service department, which is where I got most of my middle of my career. I started off in sales, did really well, but it just wasn't my thing. There was an opportunity to help out in service, went back there, loved it. So I'm still involved in a lot of the day-to-day service stuff, but general manager side of things helps to kind of oversee the mix of everything between sales, service, finance, overall compliance, employee stuff, anything that needs to be done.
She's so lucky.
Back to that working card. If I would have only known what I was signing up for.
I'm the lucky one there. I'm like, could you handle this? Yes.
I want to come back to that. So it's a lot of operations. Then,
Yes.
Day to day.
Yep.
And enjoy.
Dealer principal and president. So just, I actually had one of my employees ask me like a long time ago. We were sitting eating lunch, and he goes, "Do you mind me asking, what do you actually do? What do you actually do?" I said, "Do you know what I do, Rick? I sit in my office and I look pretty all day. That's all that I do."
Full-time job. It's not easy.
And then I went into detail.
And I go on podcasts, and
And then I went into detail of all the things that I do. He's like, "Yeah, I am. I'm really sorry that I asked you. I don't want your job."
So if you had to say, like, what's like a couple key things that you focus on every day or focus on throughout the year that jump out?
It depends on what it is as to what is going on. Like we just finished a really big. Ford has, as I'm sure many people are aware, Ford is forefront for electric vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
So they had what was called 3 years ago now, when they announced the launch of the program, was called Model E. So we had to decide whether we wanted to be part of continuing to sell electric vehicles or not. So it was considered a voluntary program.
This is just the dealership itself?
Yep. So each
Okay.
dealer got to decide whether they wanted to participate in the program or not. And
You
we
guys are, right?
Yep. And we decided that we would be all in. So we installed, we have 2 level 3 direct charge chargers, and we have 6 level 2 new chargers, plus our other 2 chargers. So we are fully in, so you can come to the dealership and charge. Like a direct charge charger, you can fully recharge your vehicle in like a half hour.
So is it
Pretty incredible.
Is it the equivalent of like the Tesla chargers?
Yes.
Like the superchargers?
Yes, the superchargers.
Oh,
So the level 3, sorry, the level, you see.
Yeah, I don't know the difference.
Sorry, everybody, yeah, because we're in that world, right? Yeah, we should know what that is, Galen.
Yeah. Well,
So-
I have an electric car. I just
Yes.
like I have a Tesla. I just don't. Like I just know if you go to Supercharger, charges click.
So
Yes.
the supercharger, yes.
Yeah.
So that was a really big project because you get to decide, obviously who are you going to choose to purchase the chargers from, who are you going to have install the equipment, and then there are a lot of other factors. And we're almost all done. They're all in and up and running, but our dashboard with Ford is not fully.
Because you have to meet Ford standards in all facets of the dealership.
Yes.
From the sales side, the service side, the finance
Training.
side, and then everybody had to, be compliant with what their parameters were. So
Training.
That's I can
Yeah.
tell, but you can just pull that.
Okay.
Yeah, usually like a fist, like kind of like aimed at you. There you go.
Thanks.
If you're gonna, look at that. You sound so much better.
Okay.
I can hear you. Just nice and loud. So, but how many guys right now, like electric cars? How many do you have typically, or do you carry any on the lot?
Yes. So currently we have 8 Mustang Mach-E's in stock. We have one F-150 Lightning because we sold last month. We actually almost sold out of them. And we have a bunch more F-150 Lightnings coming in. So, I mean, because there really is a misconception about that people think that they won't work.
Mm-hmm.
You drive a Tesla, so they will work.
Mm-hmm.
In our area, you just have to, think a little bit more about it and plan if you're going to be driving like a farther distance. But for most people, you're not driving more than 300 miles in a day anyhow.
Yeah, so I mean, I've had it almost 4 years now, and I got it, I think, 2020 sometime then, and it's the best vehicle I've ever owned, but part of it is like when people say the electric portion of the car, the two things you have to make the biggest adjustment on is number one, long travel.
Yes.
But what I found with the long distance travel, which is very true, I don't travel, I typically have to use a supercharger maybe a half dozen times a year, and it's when we travel. It's and what I found on those longer trips, it actually makes you slow down and appreciate the trip more, which is a weird thing to think about. But instead of, because most people get in the car and like, okay, I got 5 hours and 20 minutes to my destination. How can I beat that time? Like we all do it, like you sprint to try to get there.
Yes.
And when you notice like, oh, I got to stop there, and the stop might be a half hour to charge. And they're usually at places that you can go like shop or eat or whatever.
Yeah, you're gonna stop anyhow. So like, because I'm like, oh, I can't make that work. I go to Boston once a month for advertising meetings because I'm a director on the New England Ford Dealers Advertising Board. So, but I could make it work. So I stop once and I stop and get gas and go to the bathroom and get something to eat. So easily I'm there 20 minutes to a half hour. So I could easily plug my car in and recharge it and then be on my way to Boston.
Yeah, and so I've never found that to be an issue. And then number two is like the cold weather, the battery does come down lower.
Yes.
But you just plan for it. So like you can still, it basically just has me, like I'm saying, like if I'm traveling, let's say from Albany or something, instead of taking the full trip from Albany home, I'll stop at 25 and charge for like 10 minutes. And then, but the same thing, it's like, it's at a Stewart's, there's a bathroom. Like it's like I don't, I always think with electric vehicles, and this is obviously you see a lot, you're seeing a ton of Fords you see everybody kind of getting into electric vehicles of some capacity. I would say right now, I think Tesla's still the premier, or I say the
name that everybody knows, recognizes.
Well, it has probably the biggest market share, but I would say
do.
Ford is right there.
We are making huge gains in that market. But Ford is, we're advertising them. We are producing more. People put the charging stations in at the dealership.
Mm-hmm.
They have also restructured their pricing, so that was key for us as well.
Do they still offer the credits or incentives?
Yes.
Okay.
They do.
Yeah, because I know like a lot of people, they factor it in, but I'm like, once you put the other thing too is you get rid of all the vehicle maintenance because there's no oil change, there's no engine.
Right, people don't realize that.
Your brake, it's all regenerative braking,
Yes.
right? Yeah,
Yep.
so it's like driving a golf cart. So your brakes, but I think this is a Tesla, but I'm assuming they're all pretty much the same. Like the brakes are supposed to go about 100,000 miles because you don't use them.
Right.
I barely tap my brakes.
Right, and do you have the one pedal drive?
Mm-hmm. It's like driving a golf cart.
Yes, it's the coolest thing ever, and they are, and like the Mach-E, this is my mother's second Mach-E. You can adjust and it really does make a difference. So you can drive it in the whisper mode. You want to get the best gas mileage, or you can drive it in the engage mode. So it's like kind of in the middle, and then you can drive it in the unbridled mode, and it is
like the sport mode. Like
it is absolutely incredible. It's fun.
Oh, yeah, especially when you punch it and like you go from.
I mean,
like,
you punch it and it snaps you, puts you back in the seat. I'm like, that is impressive.
Yeah, and I'm not really a big car person. Like I'm not a gearhead with anything, but that was the one thing. And of course, like I said, that's the only electric vehicle I've driven. But I'm thinking most of them are probably very similar in how they actually drive, and it's incredible. It's quieter. Like I said, it snaps you back. I think the maintenance on it, because I've had it almost 4 years. I have had to go to a service 3 times in 4 years, and they were all covered. It was easy. I mean, I put windshield wiper fluid, and I changed my tires.
Yes.
Like there's not
Because
a whole lot of maintenance.
people don't think of it because there is no motor. So
There's no motor.
That
you get the front, or you get a frunk or whatever.
Yes.
You get but the thing is, like when you start factoring all these in, and now the prices I think are actually more manageable.
Yes,
like,
than
they're
what they were.
becoming
Yes.
much comparable to a regular car. But and this is what I looked at. Like everything switches over time. Like people, we go back to like cell phones. How many people didn't want to carry a cell phone? How many people didn't want to go on social media? How many people didn't want to do digital advertising? Like all these things that we now are, driving an electric vehicle is just what's going to happen. So to me, it's like embrace it, change it. That's where everything's going.
Yes.
I think you guys would have more of a pulse on this. I think there's going to be some type of legislation within the next maybe 15 to 20 years that mandates it has to only be electric. Do you think there's a point where they just get rid of gas completely? Like it becomes a law, like we cannot make gas anymore?
That's where they're headed. I mean, New York State by 2035, it's supposed to be all electric vehicles. That was
it's even quicker than I thought.
Yeah,
Okay.
so that was part of the decision when we made the decision to continue selling them. Was okay. New York State said by 2035 you're going to only be able to sell electric vehicles. So that was like a no-brainer for us. It's like, okay, if you're going to be in the game, you got to be in the game,
adapt.
right?
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
And federal government. I mean, the reason you have the electric vehicles, part of it is, the government is saying that every manufacturer is going to sell X amount of vehicles, and they're going to use this much fuel, and it's going to CAFE regulations. So in order to help your numbers, that's where the electric vehicles come in. It's very complicated, I guess, to explain, but that's a piece of it as well.
Now switching gears. So this is something I'm a person watching advertising. I like advertising, I like marketing. One of the things that I always find very impressive, and I have no clue what metrics are in car sales, but you guys seem like you sell a lot of cars. So maybe, I don't know, sales manager or general manager, like what's the most amount of cars you've sold in a year? Because it basically averages out to what, like 3 a day almost, 4 a day?
Yeah,
Something-
if you average out by our working days, because we're not going a full 365 either, right?
Yeah.
So you've got weekends, holidays, those kinds of things that are backed into those numbers. Our highest was
Was it
1,000?
1187?
it was over
It was
1,000.
over 1,000.
Whew.
Was it 1187?
I think 11.
Yeah, I think it was just shy
1187.
of 1,200.
That seems like a lot,
That's a
especially in
lot.
a rural area.
Right,
is a
in
lot.
little old Chazy. We have,
Yeah.
so we're part of the Boston region in Ford's corporate world, which is interesting because there's only like five dealers in New York State that are part of the Boston region, which then includes Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts.
Yep.
So we have reps that come out or sales team that come out, marketing reps, and they're like, wow, you do all of this here in Chazy.
Yeah.
And they can't believe that it's as rural as what we say and that we're able to be as successful and fortunate to have the customer base that we do with the area that we're in.
Because I feel like there's people that you see like on the license plates and stuff, they have like the Riley Ford and stuff. There's a ton of cars. And I'm from Chazy. I literally grew up like, you probably hit a golf club to my house.
Yep.
And I remember, every time I see it, I'm always like, it's Chazy, New York. Like it's kind of cool to see, but you see it all over the place.
Yep.
And I find that people that get cars, or at least from here, they just repeat over and over and over again. And again, when you look at a sales business, which we are in the same thing, repeat customers is huge because then for many reasons, obviously the word of mouth and things like that, it cuts down on advertising costs, you have better clients, and when you start building that up, you really get that kind of baseline. So going back, so we're now in 40s, how many, 50 years, almost 45 years, 1980,
Yeah.
45 years.
Yes.
So in the 45 years, I mean, is there people that you sold a car to in 1986 that are still coming today that are buying cars? Mm-hmm. Like, which is, I mean, you think about like longevity of a place, like that's a lot of years.
So
30
like
something.
You know, so I've like sold them, and then it was their sons or daughters, and now it's their sons or daughters.
So multi-generational.
So multi-generational, which is really,
I bought
really cool.
my first car from your grandfather,
Yes.
and then I bought from your mother, and
Yeah.
it's just that part is the coolest to me.
Yes.
And they like to share that with me when they know that because I sign with the customers when they come in and purchase their vehicle. They love to share that that's what's going on, and that to me is the coolest compliment we could receive.
So, and I look at a lot of stuff too. Like you guys have a ton. I'm gonna Google it. I want to make sure I have the right thing. You guys have an impressive amount of Google reviews, and it's 4.8, which is usually like you kind of can find like outliers. If you get 391 reviews, so I mean, obviously the reviews and stuff are something you guys really push.
Well, we don't push it. It's like legitimate.
A lot of people
so,
just go on and do it.
Yes. So
Yeah, that's even better.
we just because we're getting ready to have our celebration dinner, so we have won Ford Motor Company's President's Award for customer satisfaction. This is our 32nd year. And you're like, so what? Why do you care about that? Well, because everybody tells you that they have great service, right? And they really take good care of their customers. But do they really? Like, how do you know? You look at the Google reviews, and did they win any awards? And it's not, I didn't give myself the awards. It's, you came in, you had service, you came in, you bought a vehicle from us. You kindly filled out the survey and told Ford, how was your experience? And that is the customers telling Ford that we did a really, really good job because we're in the middle of nowhere. Mm-hmm. So what is going to be the difference? You can really go buy a vehicle anywhere. Truly, you can. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of different choices, not just Ford, but other manufacturers. So what is going to set us apart from everybody else? And it truly is how we take care of our customers and how we take care of the people that work with us. That is what sets us apart. And not just saying, I know you've been into the dealership, but like Jenna had kind of, spoke to that a little bit when people come in and like, wow, you sell that many vehicles where you're located, but they also come in and they're like, wow, it's a really different feeling when you walk in your door. Like you feel welcome. You feel like people do truly like you and want to take care of you and are friendly because, that is the difference. And and we're genuine.
Yeah. Well, I think it goes. I mean, again, it's been a pillar in at least our community. I say community, Chazy community, but in the North Country for many years. And when you look at too with car, like the way car manufacturing's done. So I guess my first question was: have you ever thought of switching from a Ford dealership to another dealership? And then the second question would be: can you? Like I look at like Della's got like 18 different cars. Like, can you? Is that something that you could do? Is have we have multiple manufacturers, or is it kind of something where it's like, hey, we're just going to get really niche and really really good at what we're good at, and just basically perform at a super high level? I don't know how the car industry works, especially when there's so many manufacturers, and you see that like some are just like there's a Kia, but then there's like a Buick and GMC, and then there's I think Parker's years ago had like 3 different things under whatever. But you guys have always been Ford. So
yes. So it has to do with your market area and the manufacturer. So like say we were interested in a Chevy store or whatever. Mm-hmm. It would have to be in the market where there's a Chevy store for sale. But we have never been interested in purchasing another manufacturer besides Ford. I mean, what is more American than Ford Motor Company? So I mean, and that's it is, and like it, we'll get into some really heated discussion sometime with some other people, but I mean that's who we are.
And somebody actually asked me this recently, like, have you ever thought about like buying another dealership? Like Subaru could be really profitable, or Kia is really profitable, whatever it is. And I was like, I would feel like a phony because we truly believe in our product, right?
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
I love Ford. I think it's the best, and we go through all these things, and that's what we truly believe in. So it's not like, okay, Galen's going to come in, he's going to buy a Ford, and I'm going to tell you it's the best because that's what I sell. Mm-hmm. We truly believe in that culture and our product. So for me, I was like, I don't know how people do that because for them it's a sale, it's an exchange, it's a business, and that's it. For us, it's more than that. Like, we believe in our products, we believe in our processes, our people. So, yeah, when they asked me that, I was like, no, not really, because that's what we sell and that's what we like. That's what we believe in.
and again, this is a total outsider. I mean, the couple things I think of with Ford, number one, American, which is great. But number two, like I always like Henry Ford because obviously he pioneered, like they talk about the assembly line, but he's really the one that made popular automotive.
Right,
So.
for the average working person, like he changed, you think about it, he changed our country.
Yeah.
One person. You know, when people talk about, well, what can one person really do? One person can really make a lot of changes.
Well, there's a lot of people, if you look at people in history, because I like, you know, you look at, like Edison with the light bulb, that changed things. Like Ford with the car changed things. Then you have like Steve Jobs with putting phones in people's pockets, changed things. So then you look at someone like Elon, if he's doing stuff like, you could argue the electric car, or you could argue he's probably more involved with like SpaceX, meaning like potential exploration of planets or whatever. But you look at these people that have shifted the way that, you know, whoever invented the internet, I don't know who it was, but then you have, I mean, a lot of it, or Netscape, or you have Facebook, or you have these things that are just completely, you know, up the game. But like back in
Life changing.
Yeah, back in 19 teens? When was it teens? I was going to say, I don't think it was in the 20s, it was earlier than that, when they came up with the Model T.
Right.
And then you look at the Model T, and I've just done a lot of reading, and Henry Ford comes up in a lot of books and a lot of people because he's standing the test of time. I think one of his greatest lines is, "You can get whatever color you want, but it has to be black." Or something.
Yes.
So, and but it was the idea of simplicity. It's like,
Yes.
I'm going to make sure everybody can afford to get a car, and you just revolutionize the area or the industry in the world. And so I look at something like that, because you got a company that's over 100 years old. There's not many companies that go to the 100 years.
Right, and their family owns the
Still,
company.
yeah, still a bloodline,
Like that is their company. Like there's no other manufacturer where a family owns. And you have Bill Ford, who is still involved, and Elena Ford is very involved. Like she goes to work every day.
They were also the only company that didn't take money from the bailout.
Correct.
And
That was
I think I actually heard this in a Tesla book, Tesla and them. But Elon almost killed himself to do so. But Ford, I think, had a stronger business model at the time. But
very good business model.
Yeah, but if you look at something like Ford, I mean, obviously they have, again, I'm assuming at some level they're able to run a company where you can withstand yourself. So they're obviously profitable, and they do the smart things, and they're not probably throwing away money or, you know, overspending, and you know, kind of running a business like you would run a household income or something. So now. And I guess going back to it, when you said like Ford and having just one dealership, is that something where, like you said, or Jenna, you said it's the one you stand behind? Does it also just come down to like, hey, it's clear cut the favorite, or it's like we just really want to keep it, when I say simplistic, like get rid of the shiny objects of getting the Subaru, of getting something else, and really just saying, hey, how can we make this the best darn dealership that we can make it? Which I would say you're up there. If not, I'm sure you guys have plans for it, and I'm sure you guys are always trying to revamp it. From outsider looking in, I was like, that's a very strong, I guess, company, or whatever you want to call it, like very sustainable company. Mm-hmm. I mean, was that a mindset thing? Is that something you guys discuss, talk about, or if it's just like, hey, we're just super loyal and we just love this process?
We've never really had to discuss it. Like that's just always how we felt. That's the way it's been. And I mean, every day we're always trying to improve and make things better. So, you know, and even if you weren't trying to continue to keep up with the times, things are always changing. So you're always forced to relook at the way you're doing things. And yeah, absolutely. We're just always working on ways that we can make ourselves better versions of ourselves, personally, at work, for our coworkers, and we kind of carry that across through to everybody. And back to the Google reviews, this conversation also came up earlier this week where we had families that had moved in from out of the area, like states across, and had called to make a service appointment, explained that they had just moved into the area, they had a couple vehicles that they wanted to get serviced, and didn't know if they could get established with us as customers. I said, yep, absolutely, we get them all set up. And, you know, how did you come across us? And they said, well, we looked at your Google reviews and saw that there's no way that many people just, you know, hey, if you could give me a really good review.
Bunch
so
of bots.
they were like, yeah, they were like, no, those have to be the real deal.
Yeah.
And then on the flip side of that, we've had people that have come for interviews for positions that we had open, and they chose to come to us because of the reviews and the people that they talked to, and kind of the recommendations from the community, because they were moving from outside the area, coming to live here, looking for a job, and wound up with us because of that as well.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many benefits to it. But now, regarding operations, like what's something that you try to focus on every day? Because what I find, and I kind of come back to it, Joy, when I said, what do you do? I was kind of saying it a little facetiously, because if you look at one of the hardest things I have right now is just thinking about business, which, and I get,
It's
I
just
think
doing,
it's
just
trouble.
being there.
It's trouble. It's tough to think. But I'm saying a lot of it is you have some direction. You own a small business. You're an entrepreneur. You have this dealership you're running. You have all these hats you wear that at some point someone's got to lead the charge or have the vision for whatever the company might be. And what I found is that in the last couple of years, I'm just speaking from my experience, I've had to spend more time out of the spotlight, but like sitting by myself thinking. And what I find about that is, number one, it saps my energy. Talk about a battery. Basically, my mind the last 2 years has felt like a battery in winter. Like it saps versus like because my thing is like if you put me in a sales position, which I still do sales, but sales has gotten to the point where it's automatic. I don't think about it. It's like
It's fun.
It's fun, and but I don't have to think because a lot of it's just like, well, give me whatever, and I'll be able to figure it out because I'm confident and I've done it thousands of times. But when I look at thinking and trying to run and come up with ideas, it might be the first time I've ever tried to think or tackle that. So it takes way more bandwidth for me to think. So I'm exhausted with much less hours put in, but it's like a high dose of concentration. So I always find when you see people that are like, oh, what do you do? And it's like you sit around or whatever. I'm like, well,
Sit in my office and look pretty all day.
I know. And
Do you do the same, Galen?
Well, I have no windows, so people can't see me. But,
However you want.
I was gonna, yeah, my wife would eye roll. She'd be like, "Stop, you're a loser." But if you're but my thing is like if you're looking at, I'm assuming there's planning that has to be done. There's visioning that has to be done. There's research and learning and like what's the best tactics. And most people I think take it for granted because like, oh, things just run. Well, like someone's at the top kind of pointing the direction of the whole boat. Someone like the captain, like steering the boat, and people are doing all their jobs.
It's a great way to explain it, actually.
Yeah, but I'm kind of giving it because I know people sometimes are like, oh, you don't do anything. I'm like, if you only
You go, I wish.
I wish. And then part of me is like, you can take everything I'm doing.
Yeah, really?
I will switch spots in a
Yeah.
second because it's such a mental drain because the hard thing about entrepreneurship is like, you want to get to point B, but you don't know where point B is. You don't know how long it is and what the steps are.
Yes.
So it's like I'm going blind and I'm kind of like, I don't know. It's almost like you got blindfold on playing like pin the tail in the pin the tail in the donkey.
Yeah. She goes, oh, I think that's a good idea. Maybe that's a good idea.
Yeah, and
Maybe
you're just
that is.
going,
Yes.
I
Yes.
hope I don't like, stub my toe in something. Like that's what you're going to do because it's business and life. But is that kind of a good representation of what you do?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And what is great is, like sometimes I'll think something's a really good idea, and I'm very fortunate that my daughters are there. And then I am very fortunate I've had Tony Roberts, who is also my cousin. He is our general sales manager, and he's been huge.
He's been around a long time, too.
He has been around a really, really long time, over 26 years. Is it this year? 26, 27. It's a long time.
Yeah.
I have a lot of people that have been with me at the dealership, though, that long, which is incredible. So, like, I'm not afraid to ask somebody else's opinion. I think sometimes I'm better at getting other people's opinions than what they think I am. Did you notice I was looking that direction? Yeah.
So obviously there's things we have to do, right? Like Ford will say you have to do X, Y, and Z. They don't care how you get there. This is what you have to do. So we really take what we need to follow and make it fit for our business model, our area, our customer base.
Yes.
There are times where I'm like, hey, I think we're going to do this. And either one will be like, well, love that idea, not going to work. Or we've had people before like, hey, your mom told me to do this. I just wanted to check with you. Are you okay with that? I'm like, love that, but no, let's try something else. Okay. And same thing with Tony, right?
Yes.
Like we're always bouncing ideas. But the cool part is we are genuinely open-minded because the dealership doesn't run with just Joy. It doesn't run with just me. It doesn't run with just Jessica. And I hope that everybody knows this, and I really try and like preach that, so to speak, that we are open for suggestions. We're open to that communication, to that criticism, because it's not just us making these things happen. And, you know, sometimes what we think is going to work doesn't work, and we'll take an idea and modify it. We'll come up with it and say, okay, guys, this is what we're looking to do. How are we going to make this happen? So, yeah, sometimes we have big ideas that we don't know how to make work, and somebody else can see it through. Sometimes we have ideas that aren't so great, but, yeah, like you said, you're always thinking, and that is probably one of the most exhausting
things
parts.
to do, and there's always something new, and like Ford lately has come up with a lot of new things that they would like a dealer to do, but they're all, you know, voluntary, right? Like I don't have to do, like we do pickup and delivery now, and that was an initiative that Ford started probably a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago now. So we signed up. I said, okay, well, we do it anyhow. Like if you can't get your vehicle to us and it has to come in for service, we'll go pick it up. But it's a very definitive process. And we hired, you know, we tried it different ways and it didn't work, but we knew that we really wanted to do it more because of one thing, where we're located, right? So a lot of people, I want to, you know, I'd really like to return to your service department, but, you know, there is nothing in Chazy. Like you're not coming to the mall. There are a few restaurants, but they're not.
They're not. It's
You know what I'm saying? Rural area, it's rural. So the pickup and delivery has become a really big love for our customers. So we hired a transportation coordinator and we hired a bunch of part-time drivers. And that has been a huge, huge success. But that was, again, an initiative that Ford came out with that I don't have to do it. But after, you know, we did a lot of research and a lot of trial by fire, decided that it was something that our customers, because at first my perception was customers aren't going to know. They're not going to want me to drive their car. Like, who's going to be driving their car? Like, no. Like, they're going to want to bring their own car. And people are like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing ever. Like, they love it.
Well, and you know, we're always looking for more people. Like it seems like every time we've grown to, you know, this many more people, we need that many more people. So when we're thinking about offering this pickup and delivery, how are we going to manage picking up 10 vehicles a day? Like we can't manage our day so far because we're already busy enough that everybody wears 3 hats all day long. But it's kind of just that change in mindset of, okay, like how are we going to make this work versus like, okay, how are we going to make this work? It has to work. How are we going to get there? And the other part that I was thinking about as she was mentioning that is, you know, when we're out there leading and saying, okay, this is what we're going to do, this is how it's going to work, everybody's trusting that we're making the best decision for everybody every day. So that's a heavy weight to carry, but also hope that they know that we're not making these decisions lightly, that when we're going out there making a change or having to go along with something that Ford's doing or trying something a little different, we're taking everybody's families and livelihoods into factor, you know, and so that's created a lot of trust as the years have gone on because they know that we're in the thick of it with them, beside them, and making decisions that are good for everybody.
When it goes back to it, like you to come up with that decision could have taken you months to come up with, or years, and people don't see it because like you're stress testing everything behind the scenes and you're doing the what ifs and this and that, and like, and I think the commonality, like you said, now going out and driving and picking up and bringing cars, which makes sense. Like people are at work, I can't get there. So now instead of jamming everybody up, can I have the 4 o'clock spot or 5 o'clock when I'm done work, or 8 in the morning? Now it's like pick up my car at 10, 11. I don't need it for the day. And then so a lot of it is like, I kind of come back to this, and I've heard, you know, and I read a lot and absorb a lot of like other business people just to kind of try to get better. And one of the things is always like, really successful people, they challenge the status quo. They kind of think outside the box. Like, you know, why do we not pick up cars? Is there any rule or regulation or law stating that we can't? Well, no. And like, does it make sense? Like, and then again, what's the steps to pull it off? Which you said, it now adds people, adds logistics, it adds managing, it adds trust in drivers and trust clients to trust the drivers. And so, but there's so much more decisions, and then when you finally make the decision, everybody's like, oh, okay, sounds good. But it's like the build up to it takes so long, and people, I think, if they're not on that end, sometimes don't see, you know, I guess the behind the scenes, or the I say entrepreneur, business owner, like wheels spinning 24/7. Even when you're like, oh, like you never shut off. You can't, like, you know, you might shut your phone and not take client stuff, but your brain doesn't shut off.
Right.
And, you know, I'm sure you guys have stayed up at night, not falling asleep and thinking about business stuff. Like,
I've never had that happen.
No.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll come up with something and they're like, when did you think of
that's,
that?
That's how you say so well rested and what was it sit in the room
look pretty.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, they look pretty.
It's a great sleep. That's the secret.
Sometimes like the best ideas come out of random times that you're sitting thinking about something. I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't follow up and do this, or I didn't do that, or I came up with this idea. Or we've had that when we were traveling from meetings, and the time that we spent in the airport post meeting for 2 hours, we came up with like fantastic ideas. And it was one of those things that we're sharing it with my mom, and she's like, oh yeah, that sounds great. I love that. And we're like, okay, well, just really trust us. We're gonna try it. And then afterwards, she's like, okay, well, that didn't turn out so bad.
Yes.
So both Jess and Jen, I want to ask you. So, and we'll come back kind of on the flip side, but working. How did you guys? I know we're kind of going back and forth here, but you guys started working when you were younger at the dealership. Then you went to college, criminal justice, business. Okay,
yeah.
so did you either of you have intentions of coming back to the family business, or was it like you said, like you wanted to be psychology?
I wanted to work in the prison system. I wanted to be a mental health counselor in some facet in a facility somewhere.
And then, but to go from that to, and again, was the business the aim to go back to the dealership, or was it this venture out?
Yeah, when I was going through both high school and college, I loved being at the dealership. I definitely had an interest in it, and the more I was there, the more I just really liked it, and it didn't seem like going to work. Like, I just enjoyed my time there. There was one semester while I was at Plattsburgh State that I changed my major, and I was so sick over it. I was like, obviously this wasn't the right choice for me, because why do I feel so terrible about making this choice?
The new major.
Yes.
Okay.
Swap back to business, and then I graduated, and there was a lot of change happening in the dealership at the time, a lot of growth, a lot of new things that were happening, and it just seemed to fit, and I enjoyed it and never looked back. And honestly, you can speak to the same. If you're going to be in business, why not be in business for yourself, where you have the ability to make changes and do good things? Like, it's not for me like, okay, great, how are we going to get out there and really just be like this magnificent business? I like the people, I like the relationships, employee, customers. Like, for me, it's just, we have an opportunity to make changes in the community, to help people in different situations, to make things better for people. That's more so what it's about for me. I have the control to do that versus working for somebody else that you can't control those kinds of scenarios.
Yeah, I mean, I like the creativity. I like the creativity and the freedom to do. I think I'd be a good employee. I just wouldn't like I like flexibility.
Right. It's funny because a lot of the people that work directly with me, they'll be like, so I looked into this and I can't. I'm like, well, I don't take no for an answer. So like, what else can we come up with? And they laugh and they're like, well, it's just no. I'm like, well, that doesn't work for me. So what else can we come up with? And then, maybe some other creative thinking, but they laugh because they have to come tell me that like something just can't be done. I'm like, well, we just gotta figure out a way.
Well, there's a way. And I think you get resourceful though when you are, I don't know. I just find that's one of the things, like a superpower of someone that's in business. Like, you have to be resourceful. You have to think outside the box. You have to make something out of nothing.
Come up with a solution. Like, if you want to be successful, you want to continue to be in business, like, you got to figure it out. Nobody's going to hold your hand and figure it out for you, unfortunately. Like, figure it out.
And there's no assembly guide.
And
there
isn't. Nobody, no.
It's like parenting. You just kind of like, I don't know, figure it out. And you try to do it.
Yep.
And Jess, what about you? So
I was laughing a little because none of those things were me as a child.
So you're like, peace out, I'm out of this.
Yeah.
Yep, there you go.
Yeah.
I wanted to go away to school. I first started, I was going to do political science and maybe do pre-law. Like, I was very interested in the criminal justice world. My dad obviously was in law enforcement, so that was always very intriguing for me and always like a great source of pride. And then I loved the dealership because I always loved the events. Like, for me, it was the fun part of it. Like, growing up there, my Uncle Gerald was there, my grandfather was there. I remember the parts people at the time, like, for me it was, I'm going to go and I'm going to hang out at the salesperson's desk.
I'm sure they love that, right?
I'm going to play with your calculator. I'm going to eat your snacks.
Sticky notes all over.
Yes, and I absolutely loved that part of it. So when it was time to go to college, it was not even a thought for me. Like, I very much appreciated and still do all the opportunities it gave us as kids, like, to build those relationships. That was a time when my mom or grandfather had won some trips, which was really cool. So it really afforded us this wonderful like upbringing, but I was never going to work there. And then I started, and there wasn't really a finance office at the time. So when you bought your vehicle, the salesperson really did a lot of it. They helped you navigate through everything, and I got this final package. So I started just simply completing the paperwork with you. So for me, that kind of bred the rest of it, because I was like, wow, I really love meeting with the customers. I have a little bit control over the process. I really like being a part of that. And the longer I was there, the more I was like, I really don't think I can leave this. I don't really quite know how I fit into it, because I never thought that I would. And that was when somebody left the finance department. They asked me to write a letter of intent, because I went from not being interested to wanting to be a very big part of it. Went through the training, and it's been that way ever since.
So the position as it is now, was that created by you, or was that evolved, I guess?
It existed already in like the automotive industry. It just wasn't something that we had really
crafted. So that
a
goes
process
back,
of our own at that point. So that was, a shift in the compliance part of it, a shift in hiring a person specifically for that. So it just was really, like they said, adapting what was going on already and making it work for us and for the customer.
And that was one of those big decisions that Jenna was involved in back then. But it was a lot of Tony and I. Like figuring out, because it used to be the salesperson that did everything, but it's so complicated now in the compliancy laws that like we wrote the process as to like how it was going to work at the dealership. I mean, so that it was, so you're being compliant and you're still taking good care of your customers at the same time, because a lot of customers. Perceptions of the finance office, but you're not going to make me go in there, are you?
Yeah,
right.
no,
Like, please don't make me
it's
go
like
in
the
there.
Wizard of Oz.
Yes.
Yes.
And that's horrible. It's like, I'd rather go to the dentist. And I'm like,
We have people thank us like, thank you so much for being so kind. Like,
Oh yeah, because I've dealt with
what?
I've dealt
right?
with car finance people, and sometimes
and that's not us, and nor will it ever be. This is one of the funniest things ever. So, I mean, obviously it's a million years ago, so. The auction is not my thing, but my dad was like, you're going to come to the auction with me today. I'm like, this is going to be good. So we go to the auction. This is a long time ago. It was in way back when it was in Clifton Park, and we're there and we're walking around. I'm like, oh my God, this is horrible. I go, I'm not coming back here. He goes, what? I go, I am not coming back to the auction. Tony loves this. He can go with you. It was like it was like right out of the movies, with the gold chains and the slick back hair, and they smelled like they had just dumped the bottle of cologne on themselves. I'm like, you know that? I'm like, this is no wonder people think that we're sleazy.
Yeah.
Because that's all. It was a lot of that. It was horrible.
Yeah.
I go, I'm not coming back here, and I never went back. And Tony went with him. And he loved going there, but it was not my thing. I go,
Probably the people watching.
And you've been in and you've grown up around us, so that's so not our vibe, so not our thing. Like, people come because they like us and trust us, and we have that genuine relationship where we're helping you through decisions, whether it's fixing your car, replacing your car, adding into your fleet, your child's first car, whatever it may be.
Trying to guide you.
So when you have someone so what I was going to say first, like the people, are they considered, they're salespeople? That's like their name. Like we're considered licensed real estate salespeople, and I hate the term salespeople because I'm never going to sell you a home. And I think the same thing with you guys, like selling a car. If I told one of you, like, hey, I had this really good coffee, you should try it, and it's $3. If you don't like it, it's $3. You throw it in the garbage and go somewhere else. Like, it's not a big purchase. But if you have someone making especially financing's involved, like there's a lot to it. Like, people aren't just going to get talked into buying a car or talked into buying a house.
No, it's like you do a good job. You should try and gather the right information from the customer so that you're presenting the right product and why it should be this vehicle versus that vehicle. Do a great job presenting different options to them, and if they like the vehicle and they can afford it and they buy it, then that's a great thing. But like to say like you're gonna force somebody to buy from you, that's just ridiculous.
That's why I always hear the salespeople. Like I said, the advisor. I always consider advisor role because I'm gonna help you out because I have the knowledge, and I'm gonna help you out because I know what I'm doing. So it saves you all the time and the hassle, and and there's an accuracy level too, where it's like, I look at like in our market for sale by owners, or you guys have someone going in buying, I don't know, a car, like I said, an auction or something, like you don't have anybody guiding you along the process. So it's like when you talk to somebody that's reputable and they know what they're doing, they can tell you all the nuances. They can get ahead of any problems that I'm sure you see stuff, especially in finance, where you're like, whoa, let's kind of back this up here, and because I can see this might be a problem or whatever. I mean, I know in like my business, I've talked to people out of selling houses. They have me come in, and I'm like, I could totally take your listing, but based on what you're telling me, it doesn't make sense to sell, like for whatever reason. And
Right.
then, you just go down the line. I'm like, what you want is a needle in a haystack, and it's probably never going to happen. Or I feel like you're doing it for some really weird reason, and I'm like. And then my thing is like, well, I don't get paid, but I don't care. I just want, like, you're making a bad decision.
Right, but consciously you feel good about it, and I can sleep at night.
That actually, what you just said is my dad, which is, like I said, probably one of the main things I remember he told me was that if you can go to bed at night with a clean conscience, that's
You're
good.
good.
So that's literally what I live my life. Like if I do everything
Yes.
where I'm like, I'm good. And you make mistakes and you make people upset and stuff, but it's like if the intent's not behind it to be mean, like we all make mistakes. And I'm sort of like, I would have done that differently, but at the time I thought it was the right decision. I can live with it. I'm good.
Yes.
So that's where I always go back to. But it's on the flip side too of like, even if I feel there's even a chance I could be looked at as like sleazy, I'll go out of my way to be like, I'm giving you like every little bit I can give you to be totally transparent because like this is my line of thinking. Like, I don't want anybody to be upset. Like, that's always my mindset because I don't, like, you guys know this, like, reputation in a small town.
It's everything.
It's literally everything.
It's everything.
You mess
Well, and
that
they're
up,
huge
like,
purchases. Like, you can't just go and buy a car, and if you bought it for too much money, then, or like, if the same thing if you do that with a house and then you try and sell it, like, you're not always able
Resell.
to recover from that situation, and then you've put yourself in a poor financial spot. And so we try at all costs to avoid putting anybody in any type of, poor circumstance.
Joy, where did you grow up around here?
Yes.
So you've been full-time North
Full-time.
Country? Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're all
Born and raised.
Born and raised in Moores, New York.
Okay, so we're all the same, but I mean, I feel like that's part of the culture of the area. It's
Yes.
just that a lot of people kind of look out for each other because it's like the same thing. It's like I feel like it's a really weird like unwritten bond of, and it not just schools or towns or anything like that, but I think most people are like, oh, upstate New York, like I know where you're from, and I think there's a lot of like trying to watch everybody's back, if in a kind of a sense of like a regional sense. So I find that does translate to a lot of local businesses that are reputable and good. It's like they really care about the person because they're like, yeah, but you go to the same places, you go to the same restaurant, our kids go to the same sporting events. Like that's I think a big part of it because there is a connect. Like we all went. I mean, I'm using you two because we went to different schools, and But it's like still the same thing. I'm like, oh, I know their parents, I know the school,
Right,
I
you
know
still-
they played golf, or
Yes.
and like.
You see them at the hockey rink. And
She's
then,
married to Fabio. Like it's
Yes.
just like now we got all these. But I mean, like you have this connection, even if it's people that you don't know super well. But you're like, oh, I know that family, or I know like they own the dealership. That's literally I can see out my bedroom window. Like that's the kind of stuff that I think just last generations. I mean, you guys are prime examples. What is the best and most difficult part of working together? Is it all sunshine and rainbows, or because I find like
it is.
Okay.
No.
For me,
Mostly. It is though.
This will mimic a lot of
Yes.
what Jenna already said already, but for me, the best part is knowing that everybody that you're there and working with and for has your best interest at heart, but also the people that you're serving, because that allows you to have a lot of pride for what it is that you're doing. The other nice thing I think is that we work in different departments. So
So we're not sitting right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
all day
people are
long.
like, what do you mean? It would be something to get personal. Well, what do you mean you didn't ask the girls? I'm like, this would be my husband. I'm like, babe.
we didn't
you
even see each other
him
today.
Because we're
And
busy.
Just everybody.
So it's not that
very
it's like
busy.
the best, it's just that part can be very helpful.
Yes.
The hardest for me, because I'm a bit more emotionally driven, is the separation of church and state.
Okay.
So
She's aware, though.
separating the business part from the personal part. It's like,
Yeah.
she can be unhappy with a business decision that I made. That doesn't mean she's unhappy with me personally. That
You
took
still
me
having dinner that night.
a
or
long
that
time
weekend, yeah.
because I was
Yeah.
very young when I stepped into it. Not that Jenna wasn't, she was much younger, but I was living with my mom still, learning from her, working with her, riding into work with her every day. And that was very difficult.
Yeah, so Mom Joy and Boss Joy were
Yes.
Yes.
nice. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, and now regarding because the trust thing is the big one. Because like I said,
Huge.
Like at least for me and my dad, like I trust my dad. Like you know, he trusts me. So like you don't have that like business partner or they, you know, if something grass is greener kind of thing. I always find the hardest part for me and him is like teaching an old dog new tricks, which is like he's like I said, he's probably. I'm assuming on like the 17th hole of his business career kind of deal, and like I hopefully still on the front nine type deal. But when you look at it, like there's times where he doesn't disagree, but it's like moving things a little harder than it probably should. There's more resistance, which.
What do you speak of?
But I find it's like, but my thing is like, and again, I always say in my head, I'm like, God, I hope like 20, 30 years from now when my kids are older that they're not looking to be like, Dad, like, come on, you gotta like, we gotta adapt a little bit. So there's, I think that's the hardest part is just like me always like fresh ideas and like having the energy to do it. And then I know there's part of it where I'm like, if I was in the business for 40 years, I'd probably be like,
We're laughing a little bit. She did this, right? So like one thing that's...
You did it to your father.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Yes.
Right. Like she went through all of that.
Yes.
Right. She was very much in our shoes. So I think we are giggling about it, but she's pretty well very open, I think. Like there are some things where like, oh, Mom and Tony, like maybe they're not really going to want to hear this, but they also are very open to change because it was the same thing for Tony. His dad worked there. Mm-hmm. So it's one of those things where that's nice because she knows the shoes that we're in.
So, well, and also like you said, I mean, she's had to be out there ground running for 40 years. So sometimes I'm like, okay, we have to do this. She's like, that sounds great if you're going to go ahead and situate that.
Let him out.
Yeah.
Because I did it.
So yeah, it's not that she's not open-minded, just that she's had to walk that walk, you know, when it was Papa and then her. And so sometimes it is funny because we have a handful of employees that have seen the transition when we had Papa and then she was in our shoes then, and they're like, okay, I can see the shift now. Like we had very similar conversations, and then here's like, you know, mini Joys coming in and be like, oh, listen, Joy, this is what's happening.
Right?
Yes. But we can all acknowledge that and know that like our intention is good. And it's funny because there are decisions that will come along day to day that for the longest time, like I knew that the decision was okay and I'd be like, hey, just, you know, was this okay to do? And then now there are some that I'm like, I don't think she's going to have any problem with this. We're still going to go ahead. And then others, I'm like, you know, I could say that, but if something goes wrong, I'm still going to put her signature on there.
Yeah. I do the same. Like I've gotten, each year I get more of just like, just do it type thing. And then there's times where I'm like, if it's like a bigger shift or something, it's more of like, even though I run most of it, so it really just falls in my, like, I'm the one that's going to do it. I still say, hey, by the way, this is what we're doing. And this is why we're doing it. Just keep you in a loop so you're not, more just like as a courtesy than it is like asking for permission. But it's better now. A couple of years back, it was like, we're doing this. And it was like, no. And I'm like, we got to do this. Like, it's like selling electric cars. I'm like, we got to sell the electric car. Like, this is where it's going. We can't still be, you know, whatever, doing something that's archaic or antiquated. So, but it's difficult. Like, I think that's the hard part with families, like you said, kind of separating the two. But if you can do it, it's great. Because like I said, if you can get past that aspect and like really, like, because there's some family-owned businesses, like generational, that crush it. And they all say the same thing. It's like, it's family, and you kind of push each other's buttons, but you don't want to, it's never worth ruining the family dynamic for business. And that's always something that I've always really focused on. Is like, I'm not going to get in a headbutting match over something that really at the end of the next year won't even matter. Right. You know what I mean? Because business changes so quickly, but your family's always there. So it's like you want to. You just when you see families that get separated over business stuff, I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah.
True. You know, for me, there's nobody else that I would rather learn from. I said something to Tony recently. Like, there's nobody else that I would want to be essentially mentored by, right? Because she did from the ground up. Tony did the same thing. Now he's, the general sales manager for my mom. So they did it when, we call it the legacy, but that really is what it is, that our grandfather started, her father, and we've continued to do that. So you get that by going back to the roots, and they did it.
Right.
Jenna,
and it's
do you have kids?
Yes, I have 3.
Okay. So, and then 2?
Yes.
So, I mean, let's just say hypothetically, there's a chance that one of those kids eventually
For sure.
So, if they're not forced to, right? They're already said.
Yep.
But you look at something like that, I think the number of like businesses that get to 4th generation is something
extremely
absurdly low.
Rare. Very low.
Like under 1%.
Yeah, because 3rd generation, it goes down with a generation, right?
Yeah.
Because what was their work ethic like, and just what changes and evolving and
or even just interest levels. Where it's
Yes.
like, I just don't like that business. But like I
Yes.
said, it's tough where, I mean, you guys have such a core nucleus that, like, you know, I look at someone like, well, Northern Insuring, they have, they're on their fourth one now. And then you start, I mean, I'm actually curious in Clinton County how many fourth generation businesses there are. There's probably not a whole lot that have been a family owned business.
right along. I would think minimally,
Like
minimal numbers,
under a
small-
dozen, maybe under
right,
5.
right? Because I mean, it's just, I mean,
Such a hard feat to get
it's
to.
it really really is, and like, you know, talking about their interest in the dealership. Jenna has always loved cars and still does, and Jessica never has. My dad was not a car person whatsoever. Didn't give two hoots about a car. Drove the oldest car in the lot. Drove my mother nuts. He would drive home the oldest thing, and she's like, there's got to be something else you can. I'm gonna just drive this home. So never really interested in vehicles, and Jessica never was, and she still doesn't really. She's not really a car. She's just not a car person.
Well, same thing. Like, I'm not a house person, and
And it doesn't make it bad.
they're cool. Like, I like
Right.
houses, but it's kind of, I've been in thousands and thousands of homes, and like, I've been in really nice homes and really not nice homes, and nothing really gets me. It takes a lot to get me excited about a home because you've just seen so many. It's probably like when a car comes out. Like, there's new features, like, this is cool, but still steering wheel, there's still seats, there's still wheels. So I like you said, the people behind it. I like the strategy behind it. I like the problem solving. I like the thinking outside the box. I like helping person accomplish, you know, whatever that goal is.
Yep.
Then, like, if you said, hey, Gail, you're going to start selling cars, you're going to start selling coffee, you're going to sell computers, like, as long as I can tap into, learn it, and then help somebody with it, the actual topic or subject, whatever, is irrelevant to me. So, like, I mean, I prefer, like, golf clubs or something like, I mean, I suck at golf, but, like, there's just stuff that's, like, more interesting to me than cars. But, you know, you kind of get beyond that and find, like, a deeper why, because, like, the car's, you know, a car's a car, but it's, like, the people, and it's whatever, it's the motion, the safety, the stability, the experience, like, all this stuff that really goes levels deep over material items. And that's where I think you got to tap into, especially when you're in sales. Now, we're going back to the kids. Actually, I think I should have known this because your daughter's like a star now on TV. I'm assuming that's your daughter, right?
It is, yes.
She is.
Miss Brownbag. So,
She's brown bagging it today, Nene.
so
And she doesn't ever in real life, just so you know. She's gonna just fly by the seat of her pants. I'm gonna buy lunch every day, maybe two if I like what they have. Don't even pack my lunch.
So I guess going back to, like, because again, you guys, you know, there's some car commercials and stuff now. Which do you guys like doing those? You said you're introverted, so I don't know if that's like out of your comfort zone. Obviously, your granddaughter soaks it right up. She crushes it.
She does. She loves it.
She's pretty funny.
Absolutely loves it. And the first commercial that we did actually won a New York. Our commercial producer won a New York State award with that commercial.
Which one was it? The brown bag one?
Yes,
The very first one that Madison was in. He was honored and presented an
That's
award
so
for
funny.
it.
Yes.
So how old is she now?
She's 10.
And how old was she there? 6, 7?
Seven or 8?
Yeah, between 7 and 8.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, you don't expect like a little kid to be that good, especially on camera.
Oh, she loves it.
Yeah, she crushed
As much as I hate it, she loves it.
Yep.
She thinks it's absolutely fantastic.
Yep.
So do all 5 kids kind of run around the dealership at this point?
Yeah.
What's who's got the youngest of the?
Mine's the youngest. So my youngest, Mackenzie, she's 5.
Okay, so I mean they're
And the other
they're
2
full
are
on.
7, 8, and 10.
Yeah.
So
So I was gonna say family parties are fun, Christmas,
Yes.
all that.
Oh my God.
yeah,
It's
Um,
great. It is fantastic.
and they like being there too.
Yes.
So that's really cool to see.
So regarding what's been the biggest change in the car industry for you? Is it electric vehicles? Is that kind of the big thing right now?
Oh,
Or
it
there-
is. Like,
Like if you had to pick like the biggest change over the last few years,
yeah.
like, that's probably the biggest.
1,000%.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
1,000% electric vehicles.
There's always things behind the scenes that change, right? Like
Right.
warranty repairs and service requirements and initiatives and
Different vehicles.
compliance
Right.
regulations,
Right.
laws, privacy, all of that. But that's industry wide, not manufacturer specific necessarily. So
And most people don't. It doesn't make a huge difference in their day to like. It's not like going from like to an electric car is a big paradigm shift for the industry versus like you said, maybe a compliance law that they
Yeah,
took
I've
out
got a new form
line
for you
item.
to
Yeah,
sign,
sorry,
or
right.
they've
Yes,
got a new.
those happen every year.
Well, it's
Yes.
still a very political topic in our
was
area.
just
Like
gonna
we
say
have
that.
people that are like, "Wow, I cannot believe you're doing that." Like
Yeah.
I am so against it. I'm like, it's definitely not for everybody, but we're here to make sure that we have the options and things that we need to continue to grow. So while I'm not going to force you to buy an electric vehicle, I'm here for anybody that might. So
Yeah.
I'm not out there saying everybody should drive electric because it's the best thing and that's
Right.
what you all need. That's not going to work for everybody, but it's still a very sparked discussion, and some people are like, wow, I cannot believe that you guys did that.
Yeah.
Like, well, partly because we have to, because that's the way things are going,
Right.
and we don't want to be behind the ball. We want to be on the
Ahead of it.
forefront. And yeah. Another one that comes up for me though, so like obviously the electric is the biggest change because we had to make a choice. It wasn't like, okay, this is what happened, what do we do? We had to make a conscious choice
by a certain time
to
frame.
do or not do. COVID was a big game changer.
Oh, God.
Everything that we had ever done was totally disrupted by COVID. Prior to that though,
Or sorry to cut in there. Has anything stuck since COVID?
yes.
Like,
Yes.
but anything that was good?
Yes.
Okay.
So for us, it was kind of the mindset, right? Like, and I think for a lot of people, it was like you really focused on what was important in life, which wasn't always an 80-hour work week, sun up to sundown, grind every day
Always
kind of
on.
thing. Yes. People didn't need that anymore. We were able to focus our business hours Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, so that we could have weekends off and have a full staff recharge ready to go Monday through Friday. That was one thing
So you
that
guys
really
were open
stuck.
on Saturdays?
We were.
Okay.
Yes.
were.
Which is common for
prior
car.
to
Yeah.
to COVID.
Yes.
But when COVID happened, New York State said your sales out. First of all, your sales wasn't open, the showroom, so it was shut down. And then they said, okay, well you can sell cars now, but your hours have to mimic your service hours, and our hours were Monday through Friday from 8 to 5 in service. So then when everything reopened, and Saturdays hadn't been that busy for us prior to COVID, because I think people's lives have just changed as to what they're doing or what they want to do with their weekends. So we had cut back our hours anyhow, and then we said, let's just monitor it and see, does it really make a difference? And it did, for the good. So we're still open Monday through Friday from 8 to 5. We're not open on Saturdays, and our employees are much happier. We've managed the exceptions when we had to be there on Saturdays, but we have a full staff Monday through Friday. So it has worked. That was one of the benefits from COVID.
Yeah, like I've always structured. I'm more of a task oriented person than time oriented. So like I work normal, but partly because it's my kids' schedule because they're in school. So like then I kind of am forced to like the school schedule. But there's times now I've had to do some stuff in my business that has been able to leverage me out of certain things because of kids, which is awesome. Like I'd rather have that, but like I'm home earlier. I really don't do weekends and evenings anymore, which I did a ton of those for probably 12 years.
Right.
But you start looking at most things, like we talked about that like heavy thinking thing. If you can like sit and focus for a handful of hours and depending and limit like distractions, you can get almost all your work done in a very short amount of time and then bounce.
Yes.
And that's what I do. It's like, okay, work really, really hard and then get out and go do something else. And
Yes.
I found I'm trying to get better at that because there's a few years where I just like buried myself, but part of it was like out racing kids, meaning like before I have kids, like build up some like breathing room. But now that I've gotten to that point, it's like, okay, how can I be as efficient as possible and how can I cut the dumb stuff, meaning like the stuff you shouldn't be doing, and how much like really focusing on like needle movers, like things that are actually going to propel us forward versus these like little, kind of like quarter step forward type things. And I'm happier and more energy, but I also feel a bit more satisfied. So I'm like by the end, like basically by noon or 1 o'clock every day, I'm like, I'm good. Like if nothing comes in the rest of the day, I'm happy with my day, my output, but then I have so much more time to just like be with the family, which is, because I'm a hermit on weekends. Like I don't go out. Like I always just, which I'm fine with. Like I want to be, I'm sure, like I said, young kids, you guys are
Yes.
right there. But now, so I guess now since you've been in the car industry, Joy, till now, what has been the biggest shift from back then to now? Because I know you said like with no phone and a calculator and obviously half of that
Buying
stuff.
habits, obviously, and that made me think about that on Saturdays. I mean, way back before the internet, what did people do? They drove around to car dealerships. They would drive to like 5 before they purchased a car. Well, people don't do that anymore. They drive by their computer.
Yeah.
So they do all the research before they come in. They know what model they're looking for. They know about what the payment should be. It's great because we've never hidden anything. So it's fantastic. I mean, and the fact that you can, I mean, it really still blows my mind. It would blow my dad's mind that you can actually buy a vehicle from us online and show up and pick it up. And the first one that happened, the girl came in and she's like, yeah, I'm here to pick up my, I don't remember what it was, pick up the vehicle that she purchased online overnight and made an appointment the next day to pick it up. And it was a used vehicle and picked it up sight unseen.
Yeah.
Like signed the papers, knew what the payment was. It was absolutely incredible. Like that's amazing to me. And you can do all of that online.
Would that have been something that you thought was possible when you started?
Oh my God, no. I'd be like,
Yeah.
you're crazy.
But I think that's like the paradigm shift of stuff. It's
Right,
like
that-
when you realize like what people are actually going to be able to do.
Everything
Because I'm like,
It's so
nobody's
much-
going to do that.
It's so much more immediate now. Like people will
Immediate-
still tell me like, I bought this car from your grandfather and a couple days later I just didn't really like it, so we just switched them. Well, by the time you leave the dealership after doing your, delivery demonstration with the sales consultant, I've already sent your paperwork to the bank. The insurance has what they need. Like this is all finalized in a matter of a couple of hours.
You're
Whereas before it
unwinding
would
it.
take days. Yes.
Yeah.
I think the last 10 years have probably included more changes and like a more accelerated rate than the last
Yes.
40.
Oh,
And Tony would
combined.
definitely speak to that. And he still busts on me a little bit because when I started back in service, we had a paper schedule that I used a highlighter and an eraser and white out. And the computer system we had was like, oh, they have this automated scheduler. And I was like, I cannot use that. And he's like, why wouldn't you? And I'm like, how would I even make that work, Tony? Like, my paperwork's great. It's dependable. I can do what I need to. And he's like, I'm sure this does too. And he was like, you have to try it. For me, at least try it. And I was running 2 schedules because I was like, I can't use this computer to do my schedule. Like, what if something happened? So I was writing a paper schedule and
Yeah,
doing it all on the
backup, 'cause
computer
yeah.
because I was like, something terrible is going to happen. And now we laugh about it because he's like, wow, could you imagine if you were still writing a paper schedule? And that was since I've been there that change has occurred.
Right.
We had we used to write showings down. People would call. We'd write down in the book what the showings were. And now I'm like, oh my God. Now, and I remember the first time they came out where you could schedule showings online.
Right,
And
like,
they're-
you can't do that, right?
Well,
But you can.
Well, I was like, yeah, this is
crazy?
no brainer. I don't have to call this person. I call this person. I'm like,
Right,
it's just
why
all
not?
the logistical stuff.
Yes.
But the amount of people that were still calling, I'm like, hey, go online. And I get to the point where, I mean, I've been in long enough now that I have, you know when you're younger and starting off, you're like, I don't want to say something I shouldn't say. Now I'm like, I know this is, I'm like, I can say this. It's like, just go on and do it online. So you start to force the people that are,
Yes.
I would say, are archaic to like, you got to adapt because I'm not going to keep doing old stuff for you because you don't want to change because then it makes my life inefficient.
Right.
So it's like, if you really want to, show the property, this is, you know how to do it. Like
This
learn.
is what we got to do.
That was the
Yeah.
other thing that COVID really did was forced us, like Jenna and Mom were saying, like to change your way of thinking. We had customers coming from all over the United States to buy vehicles from us. And we had somebody drive from the Midwest to purchase a vehicle. And although a lot of the paperwork is the same, it's not in terms of titling and registration and insurance. And this guy drove 16 hours to come pick up his new truck from us. And
wild.
we had that because of inventory. We had that because a lot of manufacturers, well, not manufacturers, a lot of dealers were marking up their inventory because it was limited, and that is not something that we did. So we actually earned a lot of business, new business through that. But this guy wants to come from Wisconsin. I'm like, he can't buy a vehicle from Wisconsin. Well, yes, he can. Yeah. So
Yeah.
you find a title service and they help you figure it out. And how do you talk to a customer before their service appointment without them actually physically being able to come into your showroom, and who's going to sanitize their vehicles when they're done? Like, it really forced you to think about what you were doing and how to make it more productive.
Is there anything in the business that you guys would like to see changed? Like the way it's done, or is there anything that's like, this is still kind of an old way of doing it that I think we can do a little bit better?
I think in some ways their cart is still before the horse. Like, they have so many big ideas that they just haven't followed up with yet.
He's speaking of Ford.
Yeah,
I was
just
gonna say, yeah.
well, and I think with the whole industry,
Yes.
because everybody's trying to be, more tech savvy and more like, oh, everything is digital, everything is controlled by a screen, everything is this, everything is that. So all of that thinking is so big. I think it's ahead of making sure that it's 110% before it rolls out to the customer. So for me, if I could change one thing, it would just be that we have to have these things really sorted out before they hit us, because that's a challenge for me to keep up with whatever things might need tending to. So the ideas are there, and they have these great things that once they can sort them out are going to be fantastic.
Is the car dealership kind of like keeping up with the Joneses? Like everybody's trying to looking like, what's Mercedes doing? What's Chevy doing? What's Ford doing?
Yes.
So I was
Yes.
going to say,
Constantly.
Because when you're trying to like keep up with everybody and move fast, you're almost going too fast. Where it's like you said, let's see if this actually
because you have to be fast, because you want to be first and foremost, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes you're too fast. So the Model E, which is the involving the electric vehicles, I mean, without getting into a lot of it, they are making some changes which are great. And if they had spoken to us originally,
they wouldn't have to go back and make those changes.
They wouldn't have to go back and make those changes.
However many years later,
Yes.
it would have just been that from the beginning.
Yes.
Yeah, it's kind of like just slowing down. Like,
Yes.
And
take a moment, talk to the dealers who are the most involved, get their opinions, because we know, because that's what we do.
Well, especially when you're on the front lines, because like I said, if you're closer to the customer, I mean, really at the end of the day, even if you go up to Ford CEO or COO or whoever they are, like at the end of the day, it trickles down to is the customer that buys your product, and you're on the front line of the customers. I mean, their goal is the same as your goal. It's like to sell more cars, get more people in Fords, to like
at the end of the day, it's the same goal.
Same goal, yeah. It's just like where you are removed, but I think it's, and I guess since both of you, because you and I were similar. You were 13, Jess. You said you started.
Yes.
Like after college, I guess.
Yep.
From like a digital, because you talked about doing marketing. How has marketing changed since when you first came into now? And when did you give up? I'm sure you guys still all play in marketing, but when did you give up?
Right. So I did. I still do the voiceovers for the radio commercials, but I was the one controlling all of the customer post. The rest of it was really a collaborative effort. It's just who's, like physically doing it, monitoring all of that. So she would see some of it. Tony would see some of it as well. And it's actually the pickup and delivery coordinator who's doing it now, which is great because he has some experience with that. But when I first started, I mean, our Facebook was non-existent, and it was first going to be, individual salespeople Facebook profiles, but that became too much for them to manage, and truly they weren't really interested because they're busy selling vehicles. And then it became a really great way for us to connect with our customers. So it really picked up when we started. I don't know if you remember hearing about the first time that we were counting down to a goal, like our 777 was the first number. We want to reach 777 vehicles.
I remember the commercials. I don't remember the specific one, but I remember you guys.
So we would post that online. This customer bought this vehicle and it was number 645. And so that really got people involved, and we used it as a way to thank our customers even after we stopped physically keeping track of each vehicle sale. So,
and a lot of marketing is such a broad area. Like, it's not just marketing is X. So she's speaking a lot to the social media piece. When I was in college and graduating and was really full-time, Facebook had just come out. Like, it was brand new, transitioning from your MySpace to
what
a
years
Facebook.
Were you at Plattsburgh?
It would have been from 2007 to 2010.
Okay, we had overlap. I probably took classes with you, to be honest.
So she did a lot of the social media because we did it was out of the realm of what my mom was doing. And Tony and my mom, when I was first starting in sales, we would have our daily sales meetings, and we were talking about the newspaper ads, like what cars were we listing in the newspaper, what were the weekly ads that we were running, and we'd have binders of newspaper ads and who was going to be on there. And then that transition to, okay, well, you have to have a website. Like, we didn't even have a website. Okay, time to get a website. Well, now the website incorporates getting a payment, buying a vehicle, financing, doing all of those things,
absolutely.
right? So social media piece is great because that just kind of lets people know what you're doing. So it's, what projects are we working on? What community things are going on? What things can we share? What customers can we share?
We've done some fun TikToks. We have an Instagram.
Yep.
So that's been really cool.
Yes. Yep, that's been a lot of fun. But so the other part to the marketing piece, Tony is very involved in, because that's what do you do with the website? What are different things that you want your website to do or not do? What promotions are we putting in there? Like, it's more than just, okay, let's advertise the lease as X amount. There's so much more that goes into it.
How do you put we as people on our website and create us right?
Yeah.
Like how do
a voice
you
for the company and the
how do
culture
you
and-
show
yep.
people who we are on our website? That
Yes.
took a while for everybody to figure out, but it's worked because we've had a lot of scenarios where I looked at your website and that's what brought me here.
Yes. Or people can schedule service appointments online. They can contact the dealership through their FordPass app. They can look at their recalls. They can get their information about what maintenances are due. They can call and say, I can't get into my vehicle. Let me show you how to do that through your FordPass app.
It's
So,
connected and it's immediate, which is what a lot of people want because everything is at your fingertips now.
And it removes the friction of you guys. I mean, you don't have to be right there. It's like, you know what I mean?
Right.
You cut out
Yes.
the middleman
Yes.
a little bit and say, hey, I can now work on, sales or finance, and
Yeah.
then they're
Yes.
just doing their thing and I think, when you look at this, you talk about like you have call captures, you have searches, you have,
Right. There's
which-
so much
which is, yeah.
behind the scenes
Yeah.
that, this company does this company does this for us. And it's always changing. And one of the things as we're looking at it scroll by, that we didn't speak to yet is,
the banner ads?
no, well, yes, looking at the banner ads is a big piece. We became the first New York State women-owned certified
Yeah.
dealership, and we still are the only women-owned dealership in the state of New York, which is incredible to me. But we are 100% women-owned, and my husband did the paperwork for me, thank God, because it took 18 months, and it was a lot of paperwork. But that has turned into something all on its own. We did it so that we were able to bid, contracts for municipalities that had to spend money with a minority or women-owned business.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it all came about. But that has turned into something really big. There are people who want to just buy from a women-owned business.
Yeah. Well, I think when you hear it too, like there's stuff when you talk about, marketing, go back to like,
Right.
USPs and unique selling. Like if you say, hey, woman-owned business, like that's something that puts you in a different classification or a
Yes.
different banner. And then again, you look at, I think locally, it's like people know you guys. So then when you see that, you're like, oh, that's really cool. I didn't even think about that, but that's really cool.
Right.
You almost take it for granted. But it also
Yes.
showcases like, there is a minority level, but you guys are also heavy hitters on your own right. You know what I mean? So you could say
Right,
like
so we
they're
never thought
legit
about it.
and-
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, we're
like-
not just figureheads. Like, no, like we run
Yes.
the store.
But but then when you pull it up, you're like, oh, actually, we
Tony
are
just had a conversation with somebody about that. They're like, well, she doesn't. Well, he's like, no, she runs the store.
Yeah.
He's like, well, I thought, he's like, no, she is the dealer. Like he really had somebody having like a conversation
Yeah.
because they really thought that wasn't the way it was. And he's like, no, she runs the store.
Sometimes you see people do it where they just like, well, we'll just bump that person up to have the title for the
Yeah, isn't-
whatever. But it's like if you can
That's
actually-
not how it works.
No, and again, local people know that. They're
Yes.
like, well, those are the people that have always just run
Yes.
this place. And again, going back to when you talk about the sales or the finance aspect, when you look at, because you said Bart doing the paperwork and stuff, like most salespeople, when you mentioned taking it off of their plate, putting it on your plate, like most of the salespeople aren't. I hate doing paperwork. Like I have to, I force myself to do it in certain regards, but like same thing. We have someone that does closings for us because it's mostly paperwork and it's mostly logistics. And if you're in sales, like that just slows you down. You're better off going and being good, meaning like play to your strengths and going out and selling. Mm-hmm. You guys have set the business up like that, or at least have grown the business where you can like you don't have to wear two huge hats. You can kind of take one pathway. Is that something that was started when you were there? Or is that like when you started, was your dad just like running everything and had some salespeople, or were you like, no, we had departments? Because obviously it's like grown. I'm gonna open that door. You guys
That's fine.
It's
okay.
yeah, it's hot.
I'm like sitting.
It's really hot in here.
I'm just trying to make you guys like open. No, I'm just kidding.
If you
Sorry,
could
you guys all out here.
you could leave now.
That's the one thing that this thing doesn't have is there's no. We actually had a big. Why am I still talking? I can't hear myself. Probably talking too loud. We used to have a thing right there that was the
Fan?
It wasn't. It was the actual boilers. I took it down for sound, and then I don't have anything. I gotta get like fans. I gotta figure out a way to because it's fine except for like right now till basically the end of August,
Yeah.
and then sometimes it gets tough.
Yeah.
I get hot very easily.
We have
so
split units in our, so they have split units
And they're
now.
quiet.
in here
In the
or
ceiling.
You can get I gotta look into because we literally have a split. You're looking at it right there. Like there's multiple ones here. It's just once you shut the door here, then I just
Yeah.
like So that's I feel better now. I need a
We
little
have
breeze.
one that's like the size of a ceiling tile in our offices.
Yeah, I
So
got to
you
look at
could-
getting something in here.
They're
because
awesome.
This is only my second year doing summer podcasts here, and last year, and now I forgot because you guys are like the first like we went on a real hot day. So I apologize.
It's
but
okay.
yeah,
It's okay.
We're
keep
good.
going. You're doing good. You guys are
We're
fantastic.
good.
Oh, what question?
So,
So
yeah, so
they,
that,
he didn't
the
have like
departments
departments. So like he did everything. So and then
Mm-hmm.
like the salesperson did everything. There were not.
Right, like you had service people and technicians, and you
Yes.
still had all of those employees, but there
was no like that's what it was. And there was no written policies or procedures like we have written those ourselves. Like we have a handbook now, and each department has clear
Like guidelines.
guidelines as to
Policies,
but
procedures.
but we came up with all of that ourselves.
And it's mostly out of a need for efficiency, right?
Yes.
Like we're a small
Yeah.
store at capacity with people and area, and you have to find ways to be more efficient. So, like she mentioned earlier, the salespeople's skills and what they're best at is not the paperwork. It's the people. It's a connection. It's getting them to the right vehicle, payment, product.
Right.
That's what they're good at. She's good at the other piece, and vice versa for a lot of other things.
Well, the thing is too is you get further removed from certain jobs if you don't have SOPs. Like you end up like you don't run the same. So they got stuff I like had to write our own. It's like it was miserable. Like it's not fun. It's not fun to do.
Yeah.
But it's like okay, it's like
It's not, but
force yourself to sit.
yes.
It's like write this paper in high school or something. It's like force yourself to write this SOP. And you're like oh god, like but it's like a necessary evil.
It is, and Tony and Josh. I mean, they're always re-looking at what our process is for different things. Because you always want to make sure that you are doing things well and efficiently, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Do you remember when I rewrote our handbook in college?
oh my God, yes.
So we had this employee handbook,
Yes.
but it was so old, I think it was typewritten.
oh my gosh,
And it needed
was.
to be redone.
Yes.
So I sat there and retyped every single page so
Yes.
that then it was a Word document.
Yes.
But it was like the original one.
Yes.
Needed
My
some
gosh,
updating,
yes.
obviously, but
Yeah.
You know what's crazy now, and this is just in general. Like you could probably, I know you can do this. You could scan it, and they could pull the words right off and put it on a
Yes.
Word doc now. And
Yes.
but you think of all this tedious things you did back in the day.
yes. Didn't Aiden just do something like that for
Yes.
us? Yes.
Yes.
Yep. But yeah, I mean,
In a
at the
detail
time, there
department.
was no way that we could
Do you
do
remember
that.
how long that was? Was it over 100 pages?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes.
Because it was like a spring project she allowed me to do while I was at school because I was in Elmira. And so she mailed it to me and I sat in the computer
Yep.
laugh at the
And that's
library.
probably when she was like,
Yes.
I'm never going to
For
work here.
hours.
Jess, I love
Exactly that.
I love that you just said she let me do it, and Joyce instant like,
Yes.
I will pay you. Like just like take
Outside
this off.
of that, it was a
Yes.
lot of like, Jessica didn't necessarily follow the rules, so she's going to sweep the shop on a Saturday.
Yes.
Jessica didn't listen, and she's going to paint the outside of the dealership.
Child labor.
I think she paid me, but it wasn't because I really wanted to do it.
There you go.
Yeah, you had a
I did
bedroom
a
at the house. That's how you
great-
got.
I did a great job, but I tested the boundaries well.
So I'm going to tell my story about Bryce real quick. Because I just want to get this in before it's too late.
I love
so
that.
Bryce, I met, total side note. So Bryce, for anybody that doesn't know, is Jess' husband. So I met Bryce at a golf tournament. He played in one of the ones out on North Country years ago. Guy shows up, long hair, beautiful long hair, just absolute stud.
So annoying.
He does that. I'm like, I just hate you, Bryce.
frustrating.
What do you
Absolute
use? No, just whatever.
Nothing.
But this was oh yeah, I know. This was Bryce circa, I mean,
It would have
might
been like
20.
2014, 2015.
Oh, it might even be earlier than that.
So we
I want to
we
say it
were
was
in
like
our
11,
early.
12.
Yeah.
Does that sound about right?
It would have been. I mean, it could have been.
You were together because
Yeah.
he came up because of, I mean, he was with you, but
Yep.
it was early on. And he came in, he had his little Mallier golf bag. He had this long hair at the time. It wasn't super long, but it was down to, I think, his shoulders.
Yes.
And then, so he played. It was, fun, great guy. He beat me, which I don't think I've ever beat Bryce, so that was, it was good. So we had a good time. So flash forward like 3-4 years later, maybe, my car gets, I need to get my car worked on. So I brought it to, it was Andy, Bordeaux, and Chazy. So Andy's working on this ding. So I have to rent a car. So someone allows me to rent a car. So I go to, I think it was Enterprise. So I get a rental car. So I show up, and I think it was, I don't know the whole thing. Long and short of it, I think I had to bring the car back. And then they brought me to my car to pick up my car. And then I was like, okay, see ya. Thank you for dropping me off. So I get in the car. This young guy comes walking around, sits in the car. We're driving. I'm kind of just like lightly chatting. I'm doing some stuff on my phone, like work-wise. And, you know, we're almost to the destination. And I was like, did you, like, where'd you grow up? And he's like, blah, blah, blah. I started telling him, like, so what brought you to the area? He's like, well, you might have been married at the time. He's like, my wife is from the area. I'm like, oh, who's your wife? Or no, he goes, my wife, she's from Moores. I'm like, well, who is she? Because obviously Chazy and Moores not too far apart. And he goes, it's Jess VanLeuvan. And I look at him, I'm like, Bryce? And he's like, hey man, what's up? Now Bryce had cut his hair.
I was just gonna say, is that when he cut his hair?
It was like clean shaven Bryce, and I only remember the guy from a 4 to 5 hour round of golf, and he had long hair, and then I saw him again,
and he looked so different,
completely different. I was like,
the hey man, what's up was perfect. That is so him.
But he's like, hey man, what's up? But he never introduced himself, and he like knew me, but I think he like played off like he doesn't recognize me. I'm just gonna like drive him to his destination. And as soon as he said it, like I still remember it. I'm like, what the heck, man? But I had I had met him one time before, out of context. He had this long, I mean, at that point, he had short hair.
When I met him, he was growing his hair out, and then he had it very long, but Enterprise at the time, it was really encouraged that you're clean cut, and so he cut his hair.
Full Johnny Damon and chopped it off.
And he grew it back out during COVID, which I tell everybody was great because it is a tough process.
Oh yeah, there's an in-between stage. You wear a lot of ball caps.
The in-between stage is very difficult, but
so that's how I re-met Bryce the second time.
Awesome.
So I really had two like, hey
great.
Bryce, these are. But it was
that's awesome.
It was good, and now I've seen him multiple times since.
He's done really well for himself, like in the community on his own.
Oh, he's great.
Working at Enterprise was huge because he met a lot of people, and then working at Northern, and he worked at ETS for a little while. So
especially, I mean, not being from the area, and like you know what I mean.
He was introducing me to people at events, and I said, okay, guys, I seriously said to them like, we have to do more chamber events because Bryce is introducing me to people. And
there's a problem.
He was from Elmira, or not from Elmira,
from Jamestown.
From Jamestown.
I should already know that.
Like, this is Bryce's wife, Jessica.
Literally. I was like, this has never happened.
I actually had one moment, my wife actually said, she goes, people are actually saying you're Galen's wife, which usually it's like, oh, you're Gina's husband. I'm like, yes. And I remember she said that at one point. I'm like, I never thought of it
it's
like
such
that.
a funny shift.
Like, but then I can like razz her, and then she's like, okay, stop. More people still know her. But it was, so it was funny, but he's great.
That's awesome.
So I guess last question I'm going to ask, and we'll get you, just because it's so hot in here, is that last question I want to ask you guys is, going forward, is there any plans or things that you hope to accomplish, focus, like any near-term, long-term, or like big-term goals, or like this is actually something we'd really love to do one day that you would like to share? If you have like some like world master plan, you guys keep to yourselves.
Retire.
I want to...
Chairman of the board. Right?
Take that working card right off the wall.
Just laminated and framed up.
Yes.
When I first started and got really integrated, it was immediately, okay, I'm doing this now. What more can I do? I'm doing this now. What more can I do? Like, I immediately wanted to be more involved and wear more hats, but they were very good about, like, I appreciate that, but we really need you to be good at what you're doing, because that was the piece of what we were missing. So for me, I just want to continue to do well at what I'm doing, continue to learn and get better, but also be able to take some things off from their plate in the future, because they still wear a lot of hats, each of them. So, I just want it to be an important part of the piece of the puzzle. So,
yeah, I would say for me to continue to transition more towards general manager role and have, my department be self-sufficient, where I can just monitor and help as needed. So really helping everybody grow in their own role, so that I can continue to step away and kind of oversee more, I mean, it sounds corny, but general things for the overall dealership operations, because it's a hard struggle with my time right now between keeping up with service and also tending to the everyday stuff, because her role has transitioned from the general manager stuff into the owner operator. So she's taken up with a lot of the really big decisions that I'm thankful I don't have to do, because I wouldn't have the time to do the other stuff So we really can't do one without the other right
Yeah,
now, which is, we're very fortunate. And people are like, oh, I bet you can't wait for your mom to retire. And I'm like, no,
We're
I
actually
do
not
not want
anywhere
her to
ready.
retire. I was like, the longer she wants to be here, the better off we all are. Whereas they're assuming like, oh boy, the second she can be out of there, you're good to go. I'm like, no, that's not what we're looking for.
Yeah.
But, and like Jessica said, also continuing to be out in the community and doing more of those things, because we're fortunate that we're in a position where we can, help the sponsorships and be involved. And we recently participated in that big YMCA
I
project,
saw
which
that,
we're
yeah.
super
Yeah,
excited
that-
about. And
great job, yes.
just things that we would have never been able to do if we hadn't grown and sustained our business in the way that we have. So just want to continue to do that. So for me, not really any like big life changing things, just continuing on the same
Right,
path.
it's the very basics of like what we do and why we do it. You want to be able to take care of ourselves and our families and our employees and their families and the people in the community, because without that, you don't operate.
But I think
Yes.
a lot of the,
Well
like
said.
you said, when you say like when you say
Well
like the
said.
basic stuff,
Yeah.
a lot of
Sounds
the
so basic, right? But it really isn't.
you take that, but you also gotta. A lot of stuff in life takes time to. It's like putting like aging like wine or something. Like sometimes it just has to sit, and sometimes it just has to like. I say ferment's probably a bad word, but you know what I'm saying. Like
Yes, I
gotta,
do.
like,
Yeah.
it just needs to take time. It's like sitting in like a chair, and someone's like, I just like broke the chair into like how it really feels. Like you see these like old people, and they have these chairs, and like that's
Their
so-and-so's
imprints
chair.
in the chair.
But it's almost to the point where like I don't want a new chair because this one has had. You almost have to have build up like the scar tissue a little bit of like the mistakes, but
Good
you
way.
want things to like settle. You know what I mean? So a lot of decisions sometimes you don't have to make different decisions. You just got to keep that consistency going and just let it settle down. And a lot of it, like you said, like developing leaders or developing,
Yes.
a tighter, knit internal or whatever it's called, like culture. That takes years to develop because you got to build trust. You got to build that like know-how and a lot of it comes back to like we don't do anything fancy. We just do it very, very well and consistently.
Yes. Probably 10 years or so ago now, when we were working on all of these policies and processes and different things that we just didn't have, I was always like, well, we have to get that done. It needs to be yesterday. And like, if something needs to be fixed, I'm fixing it today. And there's a solution and we figure it out. And somebody continually reminded me, you have to crawl before you walk, before you run.
Yeah.
So like I was sprinting all the time, and they're like,
Yeah.
that's great. Love the enthusiasm, but we have to crawl before we can walk, before we can run. And that was something that I've always kept in the back of my mind, and he continues to joke with me about, because he's like, remember, we still have to crawl before we can walk, and then you can run. And if you can't do either one of those before the next, then you're not going to be able to run well.
Especially a generation, people want it like instant. It's like you still got to remember basics of like good things take time, and
Yes.
you gotta let it.
Right,
keep-
because I mean, yep, and it's so difficult. Like you understand it because you're in business, but like you always have to continue to monitor what you're doing to make sure that you're doing it well, and that's what your customers want, right? So you're always like reassessing what you need to do to continue to grow, to continue to take care of your customers and your employees. And it sounds like so easy, but it really isn't. Like, like you were just talking about, because like, especially the last few years, there's been a lot of changes in the automotive industry. And then with COVID, like so many things were just so bizarre. And like so many things that, well, we used to do it this way. Okay, well, that doesn't work anymore because that's not the nature of the industry that we're in right now. But to analyze it in a way that allows you to grow without becoming complacent, I guess is a good way to say
Yeah.
it. So very fortunate that, I have myself and then my daughters and a lot of key people at the dealership who are very open to like looking at different things to continue to grow.
None of us at the end of the day are like, okay, we're doing everything perfectly. We do a really good job, and we certainly try, but
Right.
we're always looking for ways to
to
be
be better.
Yeah, it's. Have you guys ever? Do any of you guys like read a lot of books?
Yes.
Okay. Have you ever seen The Infinite Game?
No.
It's it's kind of like more of like a nonfiction business book, but the author Simon Sinek, he did Start with Why.
We
Is his-
love him.
Simon
Yeah.
Sinek. Start with
Yes.
Why. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Him.
So
I'm like,
same
we
author.
know.
I'm like, oh, Mike, you say that? I'm like, yeah, we know him.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, had dinner with him last week. Yeah.
Yes.
But-
Great author, though.
Yeah. So but one of his books is called The Infinite Game, and it's really
Okay.
you're playing an infinite game, meaning that there's no end goal. It's like because you're
Right.
always trying to improve. It's kind of
Yeah.
like they say, like your health is one of those, your family's one of those. There's
Yes.
never an end goal to family or health
No.
or life. It's just like you always want to just keep chipping away at it.
Yes.
So that's what I feel like people that are in business that really, like, if you're not in the position like, well, we're trying to like have an exit of some capacity where it's like, well, no, we just.
Yeah, because it's not the same for everybody. Because like, some people have a different exit plan or have a different succession plan, right? If they don't have family who's involved, or they're just, it's not the same for everybody.
Yeah. So right now it's like infinite game. Maybe
Yes.
maybe you have to do it to your, I don't know,
I love
down
it.
the road. But hopefully one of the 5, dives into fourth generation.
Carson
so.
has said that which my oldest, can't wait for Madison to run the show someday because there were a few commercials that the boys weren't in. It was just Madison because we were doing the women-owned business.
Yeah.
And I just really love that she's in there. She's going to make a great boss someday.
Yes.
Yep.
I was
So
gonna
that's
say, every,
cool.
every time I see a picture of him, I think he's got a hockey jersey of some sort on. So
He does.
he's a Vegas guy, right?
Yes. The big Vegas guy, he also is a very big Edmonton Oilers fan, so he's very excited about what's to come.
Oh, this wasn't just this year.
No.
Oh,
it's
he's
prior.
been.
Yes.
Oh, good for him.
Yes.
He's not a bandwagon kid. I like it.
No, it started probably 3 or 4 years ago with Connor McDavid.
Okay,
And
yeah.
then a friend of his really liked the Oilers, so it was just something that grew from there, and he has stayed an Oilers fan. My younger son is whoever's playing, he's cheering for.
Yes, we have many
Against the-
jerseys for Hayden.
Literally anybody. Got a
Oh,
Dallas
oh, I-
Stars jersey because he really liked them.
Yes.
I
That
did.
cool logo.
Yes.
And Joel, Jenna's son, is Rangers. He will root for the Vegas Golden Knights, but he's probably more of a Rangers.
Yeah, my
fan.
husband's
Yes.
a big Rangers fan, so
Yes.
Rangers, but then Pops.
I thought they were going to win.
Yes.
I thought it was going to be Edmonton and Rangers.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that
did
was
my
tough.
husband.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say.
We
just
could
too
hear
soon,
him yelling
right?
from the
Yeah.
neighbor's driveway, literally.
Bryce
so.
thinks it's
really?
going to be Florida now. They just.
Yeah, they're good. But
Yeah.
They are.
I'm not a huge. I like hockey. I love playoff hockey. There's no sport that plays as hard as.
It was a
playoff
phenomenal
hockey.
series this year.
Yeah.
Yes.
Amazing.
I actually just started watching playoff hockey like 2 weeks
Really?
ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean,
You
I
missed
just
a lot of really good hockey.
I know, but I don't watch like anything. Like
Yeah.
I
No.
watch I watch golf. That's the only sport because people are like, I love the Giants for football, but I think last year I watched maybe a quarter. I just don't. I mean, you just
It's a lot of time, and you have a young family. So
Yes.
for
But
us,
like-
it's like
but like-
Bryce is going to sit down and watch an hour of it, or
But like hockey playoffs is fun because
Yeah.
it's late at night and it's like. And I was thinking about the other day too. I'm like, if you like hockey, they play every other night for like 2 weeks. So like
Yes.
every night you could sit down and watch a game of some
Yes.
like a very major game. And
Yes.
it's fun. So like if you're a hockey fan, this is
Yes.
this
It's
is
a great
prime
time
right
of
now.
year.
It's
Yeah.
even better than Stanley Cup. It's
Yes.
just got
Yeah.
games every
Yes.
night. So, all right. So we're gonna wrap it up there. If you guys want to find them, they're in Chazy, Route 9, RileyFordInc.com, looking at the website. But you guys are great. I appreciate you guys all coming on.
Thank
and
you for having
keep
us.
doing great stuff because, again, you've been pillars of at least I'm going to say North Country, definitely Chazy, but North Country and surrounding areas for many, many, many decades. And I don't think that's going to stop anytime soon. So great job, guys. And
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Galen.
good job for your first podcast. Right?
Thank you.
First.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
First. Yeah, you guys crushed it. All right. We're out. Bye, guys. Thank you for listening to the Galen Trombley Show. Be sure to subscribe, review, and share the episode. You can follow me on all social platforms at Galen Trombley. Thanks for listening.